So foundational distortion patterns are, like I said, part of the human experience. So we don't even notice that they're there. That's why they're so insidious. Okay. And we just assume that's how the reality is. So for example, fear of loss is a very foundational distortion pattern, right? We're terrified of losing stuff. People in our lives.
Things, anything.
People even, right? People. Like we're terrified of like losing the people we love. Yeah. So we do all this crazy stuff to not lose them. Or people that we don't even love anymore. But we can't let them go. Right. You know, that happens too, right? Where people, right? Because we're afraid of losing them. Like, what if something better doesn't come along? Yeah. Right? And then we stay in that relationship, right? So fear of loss is like such a fundamental distortion pattern. And it comes from the disconnect from spirit, right? Where you don't realize you're this infinite being, this infinite consciousness, this limitless being that has access to everything. It comes from scarcity. Is my point, right?
That's the other foundational one.
Another foundational one is absolute scarcity, right? Where you feel like you're not complete, that you're not enough, that you have to strive to get something outside of yourself to feel complete. All of those, whether it's a person or a thing or whatever you think it is, a circumstance, like both of those things are foundational. We don't really see them. We just think, oh, that's just part of the human experience, and I'm just kind of like this. Runs through everyone. It doesn't matter what your race, your class, it doesn't matter. When you're born, it's there. And so the only way that I know of to release something, you can try and use different mindset things and all that stuff, but it doesn't really work because ultimately that's programmed into us and we have to release them at the, sometimes deep into the DNA level to release it so that we can have a different experience, which is, it sounds like, oh, we're just going to release it. It's a huge deal. Like humans have had this like since the dawn of time, like, you know, just in terms of humanness. And it comes, like I said, from that coming through that veil of forgetting. And some of us distort pretty heavily, right? Some of us come through and it's like a little traumatic and we kind of like, you know, can deal a little bit. For others, because not only coming through the veil of forgetting and they're forgetting their limitlessness, they also distort because now they're all of a sudden in linear time. They're like, oh, I'm not even in the eternal now anymore. I'm in linear time, which is much more compressed, much more rigid, much more linear. And it's like, oh no. You know, like, I don't know this is like a lot. I don't know if I thought it would be kind of like this, but I didn't quite realize what it was going to be, right? So there's a little bit of trauma there. So until you can release the distortion around that, coming through that veil, and then also, and like I said, not everyone distorts at the same level, right? Some people come in and they're okay, right? And because just of who they are.
But they still have the foundation.
They still have this foundational distortion pattern, which of course can totally influence your experience of the world in a way that's not great. So yeah, that's why I think they're the worst ones, because you can't necessarily, you don't even know that they're necessarily there.
Okay, so this GFC is huge.
Yeah.
And I know you have deep dives on each topic.
Yeah.
So are there like just like a certain amount of foundational ones? Like can you name them, or is it kind of like a lot, but you can name some of them?
So I'll name some of them to the best of my ability. Okay, so absolute scarcity is one, which is where you feel like you need something external to complete yourself. The fear of loss, like I said, is another one. The also spirit debt.
I was just going to ask about that. Perfect. Can you talk a little about that? Because there's an episode on it, but it's a little ways back.
So if you want more, like Chia said, go back and look at the one called spirit debt. So spirit debt is where it's like a disproportionate exchange in terms of receiving. So meaning that you have to give a lot in order to receive very little. Okay? So meaning you might have to give up, like for example, like your life force or your time or your focus or like emotional stability or even mental stability in order to get something else, usually of a much lesser quality. So it could be like a sense of security in relationship or job security or money or happiness, you know, but you get not very much of it, but a lot. You have to output a lot in order to receive that small amount.
What about like when someone's like, you know, you got to work real hard these days to get what you want, you know, like people who work every day constantly and they just feel like, where's the money going? Like that's a pattern you're running and that affects your reality.
Totally. And it will show up in different ways, right? So for some people it's money, some people it's love. Right? So for some people where they're challenged with relationship, it's like, it doesn't matter. It's like they go into like a lot of like self-abuse or self-punishment because people abuse them a lot. And in order for them to feel like loved or accepted or seen or heard. So they have to give a lot of themselves in order to receive a little bit from others.
In relationship.
Yeah, it can be really, it can be really debilitating. So it's not just like money.
Yeah.
Right? It could be a relationship. It could be self-worth, for example, can show up like this.
So is low self-worth non-deserving a foundational?
Yes, it's a foundational distortion pattern. Yep, it is. Yep, there it is. Okay. Yeah, so that's another big one. Especially, so low self-worth non-deserving is a huge one for what I call old souls. Okay, those of us who've been here for a while and been incarnating, then what I would call an old soul, who comes from a higher resonating place of consciousness to begin with, embodies, and then incarnates for a while to get to this point, by the way, people, in your life where you get to free and become awake. You've been working all these lifetimes to come into this higher level of consciousness.
Oh, which is right
now.
So that's why it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like some of us have been here for like millennia, trying to like get to this point.
We get here.
Yes, because when we came in, the consciousness level was so low. So you come in, you're like, whoa.
like cavemen.
Yeah, or like really, like maybe just a little bit beyond that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, but close. You know, consciousness very low, very dense, tribal, for example.
Sure.
You know, and so you have that going on, and then you have you first coming into this experience of human. For some, they remember a higher level of consciousness. It's really difficult, so they incarnate over time, waiting for consciousness to rise enough so that they also can have the experience of the human, having this experience of consciousness rising and their own personal consciousness rising. They forget that a little bit along the way in all these incarnations, but there's something that's pushing them to seek, to find something.
Each lifetime to seek.
To find that connection that they're like, I know it's there, right? So a lot of those people are that's what I would call an old soul, right? So some of the old souls didn't come in right into like a consciousness that was low. Some of them would come in through like a society like Lemuria, which by the way existed, people. So just so you know, it existed. And that consciousness was higher. Okay.
And what is that?
So Lemuria is what was before Atlantis. So Lemuria was.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah. So Lemuria was like a culture, let's just say, where it was of a higher level order, where it was more new beings from a higher level order, and they remembered more. Okay, so they were a little bit separate from the other humans, and they were able to cultivate practices that. Like using their remembering, does that make sense, of this higher level order? So for those Lemurians, a lot of them are now coming of age, like they're coming into of age now, meaning like they've been reincarnating. They're like, yes, we're here, we've made it. Okay, so not everybody listening to this is a Lemurian, or just so you know, some of you are, some of you are not. It doesn't matter, but I'm just making a distinction.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so depending on who you are as an old soul, but that's why this time is so critical. And when you release foundational distortion patterns for old souls in particular, like low self-worth, non-deserving, which is a trigger for old souls. When you release that, it's such huge freedom because you've been incarnating so many lifetimes with this pattern over and over and over again as part of your experience as a humanist. And when you release it, you're like, oh my God, this is who I really am. And I've been waiting. I've been waiting for this moment, right? So it's really awesome. And even if that moment is just fleeting for now and then becomes more, it's still like, that's right, like an embodied remembering.
Yeah,
like,
at least you touched on it.
Yeah.
Right.
You're right. This is the human experience without that. Awesome, you know?